All right, good evening. Welcome to the Psyche Coffee Shop. I'm Aeson Knight. Of course, sitting down with me tonight is David from AX3. Now, this is Aster Lansom. I did not say that right. Tell him about it.
Yeah, so it's called astaxanthin. I'm Dave. A pleasure to be speaking with you this evening. Astaxanthin is the name of the molecule, and our brand is called AX3 to make it a little bit easier to say. But astaxanthin is actually a naturally occurring molecule. We've all consumed it, whether we've eaten it in salmon, shrimp, lobster, crab. It's actually what gives them their pink or red coloring. But it does so much more than that. It actually gives them health and vitality, and is a really potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. And so we've done a lot over the last 20 plus years to understand how it works and how best to produce it and help people with all the benefits it can provide.
Right. And with this one, is it different than like our standard, is this what doctors are telling us? Eat salmon once a week or twice a week? And how's that really work with this?
Yeah, it's certainly one of the reasons. Salmon are also a good source of omega-3s, so they have a lot of nutrients. But astaxanthin is a really important nutrient that you can consume from salmon, which makes it a superfood. And it's really different than a lot of other antioxidants or other anti-inflammatories, given its mechanism of action, how it distributes throughout the whole body, gets to your cells, gets to the mitochondria in the cells, which is where the energy is produced, and gets rid of the excess free radicals or oxidative stress that can occur due to diet, exercise, aging, environmental conditions, etc. And all of that can trigger inflammatory pathways and processes throughout your body, which can wreak havoc. And the fact that it gets to these privileged locations and works at the source of inflammation is something that sets it apart from other anti-inflammatories. And also it's very different than other antioxidants in terms of how it gets into your membranes and how potent it is at scavenging those free radicals.
Right.
So it's something that is really interesting how nature came up with this to deal with these issues.
Yeah. Now, what did you see in the salmon that when it wasn't in them?
So salmon without astaxanthin are gray because astaxanthin is what makes them the beautiful pink color, but they're also smaller. They're more prone to infection. They're weaker, and in fact, they wouldn't be able to swim upstream. So they, when it's time for them to reproduce, they have this amazing feat of endurance and strength where they swim back upstream to where they were born to reproduce, and it's an incredibly grueling and strenuous journey. And to do that, astaxanthin is something that they are just loaded up on. And as they swim upstream, when they turn bright red, that's actually the astaxanthin transferring from their flesh to their skin. And it's something that is probably helping to signal that they're ready to reproduce, but it's also helping them actually make that journey. So it's something that salmon would not be a salmon without astaxanthin.
Interesting. And what have you saw with this product over time? Because you've been dealing with this 25, 26 years now.
Seen a lot of things. So first of all, the fact that it was helping salmon with this amazing journey was something that was an aha moment for us to realize that this is not just making them pink. This is something that is critical to their health and vitality. And when you dig a little deeper, you find that it's present throughout the marine food chain. and it's initially produced by microalgae as a defense mechanism against UV light from the sun, but it's consumed throughout the marine ecosystem. So like I said, shrimp and crab and lobsters, even up through whales, consume high amounts of astaxanthin. And so it's been something that has been prevalent throughout nature. And in the last 25, 30 years, there's been an explosion of scientific research that's been done to help us understand how it works in the body, the fact that it gets to cells, gets to the mitochondria, how it aligns in cellular membranes, how it scavenges free radicals, and prevents pathological activation of inflammatory pathways. So there's been a lot that we've seen in terms of how it works. But then in terms of the health applications, inflammation is something that throughout your body, whether it's in your joints or your brain or your heart, can lead to health issues over time in different places that people may think of as unrelated, but in fact, they share a common core driver. And so we've seen benefits for joint and muscle health. We've seen benefits for cognitive health and function, cardiovascular health, metabolic health. So we've seen benefits from a whole body standpoint, kind of mind and body, that are all anchored by this kind of safely targeting and mitigating oxidative stress and inflammation at the source.
Okay. So with it targeting everything, it gets processed in the liver. Is there any side effects? Is there any things that gets broke down? You know.
Yeah. So in a lot of times you'll see with various, whether it's supplements or medications, therapeutic agents, doctors will want to check your liver enzymes to see if there are side effects, and typically you'll have elevated liver enzymes as an indication that you're having a bit of a side effect and somewhat of a safety signal there. We've actually seen the opposite of that when we've done studies looking at liver health, and we've seen actually reductions in your liver enzymes. So if anything, it's benefiting liver health rather than causing damage, which typically when you're administering some type of supplement or medication, a doctor will work with you and figure out, okay, how much can I dose? What's the safety window? What's the trade-off? In this case, it looks like it actually supports your health and is not causing the side effects. And so there's been extensive safety testing that's been done with astaxanthin. In order for astaxanthin to actually be included in animal feed, for instance, salmon feed, farm-raised salmon are actually fed astaxanthin because it's a critical part of their diet, and otherwise, they would not be pink and they would not be healthy. But before the FDA would allow the salmon farmers to feed the farm-raised salmon with astaxanthin, similar to how they get it in the wild, there had to be very extensive safety testing done, knowing that humans would be consuming those salmon as well later on. And so a whole robust battery of toxicity studies were conducted, high doses, long durations, and showed no clinically meaningful side effects that were of any concern. There's been also over the last 20 plus years, more than 50 human clinical trials or human clinical studies with various forms of astaxanthin. And there's been, again, no clinically significant side effects that are of any concern. And same thing in the various other studies that have been done, and in the 20 plus year history of various astaxanthin supplements being on the market. So this is something that has an exceptional safety profile with no known side effects of any clinical significance. The one, we wouldn't call it a side effect, but it is something that can occur. So because it is a natural pigment, it gives salmon their beautiful pink color. Similar to if you consume beets, it can discolor stool if some passes through and is not fully absorbed. But we do have a very highly bioavailable formulation of astaxanthin, and we also recommend that people take it with a meal. And with that, that does maximize the absorption and minimize any stool discoloration that can occur. However, if some does pass through, then stool discoloration may occur. So that is something that can happen, but certainly is not a safety issue or side effect from that standpoint. Spinach, beets, any colorful veggies or fruits, that's similar for sure.
Have you seen interactions with any medications?
We have not. We always, of course, recommend that if someone has a medical condition or if they're on medications, that they should work closely with their doctor or other
Mhm.
healthcare professional to figure out what works best for them and monitor their health closely. But with that said, in the clinical studies that we've done and others have done, we haven't seen those traditional, in the pharmaceutical world, it'd be called drug-drug interactions,
Mhm.
for example. Just as one example, we did a human clinical study in cardiovascular subjects. So these were individuals that had cardiovascular, history of issues or risk factors.
Right.
They were on all the normal cardiovascular medications for lipids and blood pressure. And then we had a placebo group, we had a low dose group, and a high dose group with our product. And we demonstrated benefits in terms of reductions of lipids and blood pressure, for example, above and beyond any benefits that were already being derived from the standard of care,
Right.
cardiovascular medications, but without any safety issues. So there were no interactions with those typical
Right.
medications that were being used there. So that was one example where we ran the study for 12 weeks
Mhm.
at the low and the high dose, and then even had an open label extension for a year or more thereafter, and did not have any reports of any interactions with other pharmaceuticals or supplements. And so, but again, we always say, hey, work
Check with
closely
your
with your
doctor.
doctor. Over the years, we have presented the science around astaxanthin and our product to thousands of healthcare professionals, and so this is something that we love to speak with doctors about, and so if they have heard about astaxanthin or familiar with it, great, they can help their patient accordingly. If not, then we can certainly provide them with information and get them up to speed on the science and how it works.
Right. So, what makes AX3 different than what's on the market? Like the after there's something at Walmart or
Yeah, yeah.
CVS or
So
whatever.
most of the astaxanthin products on the market are derived from microalgae. And that's actually where my journey started here as well. 25 years ago, working with a company growing the microalgae that naturally produces astaxanthin.
Hmm.
And doing that is pretty challenging. You can have batch to batch variation. You can have contaminants. It actually takes a lot of water and land and energy to actually produce the microalgae and then to extract the astaxanthin from it. And even when you do finally extract the astaxanthin from the microalgae, you're only getting 5 to 10% astaxanthin in that microalgal mixture. And then you have another, 90% of other components from the algae, which are not necessarily bad for you, but that's not what is the intended active ingredient. And so over the years, we realized that there are better ways to produce astaxanthin, and we can do so in a way called natural product photosynthesis. So it's essentially a laboratory process where it's highly rigorous. It's how most pharmaceuticals are made. So we're using that highly rigorous manufacturing process to
Hmm.
construct the astaxanthin molecule step by step with super high purity and consistency, and where you end up with a highly pure astaxanthin molecule, and which is consistent, and then we formulate it into a highly bioavailable form, so that you can actually absorb much more into your body. And then we did a head-to-head study versus the leading form of astaxanthin from microalgae in a group of human volunteers. We
Hmm.
gave them a dose of the microalgal form of astaxanthin and then measured their blood throughout the course of a day to see how much astaxanthin they actually absorbed from that dose. And then we had them go home for a week, not consume astaxanthin or take any astaxanthin supplements. And then we gave them our form of astaxanthin and then measured again their blood levels over the course of the day.
Hmm.
And starting again from the same dose per of milligrams, we did two 12 milligram capsules. So
Right.
they had 24 milligrams of astaxanthin previously from algae, and then 24 milligrams of astaxanthin as we produced. And when we measured their blood levels, we actually had 3 times the amount of astaxanthin delivered to the bloodstream. And so that is something where you're going to have a much better effect, because you have a dose dependent response where the more you get in, the better the benefit is. And also, it's just more practical and cost effective for a consumer to be absorbing as much as possible from the supplement rather than passing it through.
Right.
And so those are really the three key benefits: the increased purity of the process that we use, as well as the increased bioavailability or the absorption of the ingredient into your body where it actually can benefit you. And then also the process that we use is much more efficient from an environmental standpoint, less energy, less land, less water. So it's much more sustainable. So those are really the key differences that set us apart compared to the algal forms of the product.
Well, you have another thing that sets you apart. Something a lot of people don't count on, especially with supply chains the way they are now.
Mm-hmm.
It comes to your door. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. You don't have to go down to GNC and be there at like 9 a.m. hoping that the manager isn't late to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a big thing. And is it auto shipped? Is it how does your system work for getting it?
Yeah, so we have a website where we sell direct to consumer, and it is set up as a subscription. So an auto ship, recurring order, however you want to term it. But we believe that is the optimal form to utilize the product, because this is not something that you take once and then you're better. This is something where this is meant to help your health and longevity throughout your life, and this is meant to
Right.
be part of your daily health regimen. And so having a monthly delivery, or if you want to have it delivered every 2 months or 3 months, you can select your frequency. If you want to say have 3 pouches delivered every 3 months or 1 pouch delivered every month, but whatever that may be, we do have that auto ship program, so it's delivered right to your door. And then as with other subscription programs, customers will receive order reminders before the next order date or the auto ship date, so that if they need to skip it or reschedule it or modify it or change their address, they can make any of those changes prior. And if at any point they decide that they need to cancel their subscription, it's no hassle. They can do it at any time. It's not like some of those types of subscription products where it's impossible to cancel, where you have to go in person and do it, or send a letter. This is something where
Right.
you can do it yourself through our self-serve portal, or you can contact our support team, and we would handle it for you. So it's something where we try to make it very easy and convenient, but we try to encourage the creating the regimen and the habit of taking this on a regular basis, because that's really where you'll see the benefits over the long term.
Okay. Well, what about as you start taking it? When do you start seeing benefits? Is it a week, 6 weeks? Where are you in that cycle?
It really depends on the individual and depends on their health condition, what type of oxidative stress and inflammation they're already dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
what are their health goals. So we certainly don't promise or guarantee any immediate
Right.
benefits, because some people already feel generally good and healthy, but
Mm-hmm.
they want to do things to maintain their health, and try to be, live as long and healthy as possible. And so for those types of individuals, you may not quote feel something, but you are doing something at the cellular level
Mm-hmm.
to promote your health. And you can look at, say, biomarkers, where if you go in for your routine health exams and you get blood work done, you can look at things like your lipids, or inflammatory biomarkers or metabolic biomarkers, and you can compare, say every 3, 6, 12 months for benefits. But we have received many reports from consumers, over the years, that have experienced benefits within either weeks or months, some even in days. So it really depends, and
Mm-hmm.
we view that as kind of the cherry on top. Any additional benefit that you feel, especially in the shorter term, whether it's to your joint and muscle function, or it's to your energy or your mental clarity, all those types of things have been reported and demonstrated. And so it's something that we encourage everyone to look for, and kind of monitor how you're feeling, how you're recovering after exercise. How's your endurance? A lot of triathletes use this product, for example. So how's your endurance? How's your recovery? How's your sleep? How's your mental clarity and cognition? There's been human clinical studies looking at information processing or memory, and
Right.
so you may see benefits there. It also benefits skin and eye health, and so people can look for benefits across those various applications, for whatever may be their particular issue or their goal. But we do encourage people to certainly try the product at least for a few months, because in our human clinical study that I referenced earlier, for example, that was a 12-week study. And we
Right.
demonstrated reductions in those health biomarkers related to, say, cholesterol or blood pressure over that 12-week period. So we certainly would say, give a 12-week or a 3-month type of program and then assess. And if you are experiencing some benefit, but maybe it's not as much as you would like, you can adjust the dose. Given the exceptional safety profile, someone that may be taking one capsule twice a day or one capsule once a day, depending on what they decided to do or what their healthcare professional suggested, they can try to modify that to a different dose and then reassess. For example, in that human clinical study, we had a low dose of one capsule twice a day and a high dose of 4 capsules twice a day. Both dose levels were safe, and both showed benefits, but we showed higher benefits at the higher dose, as you would expect. So that's
Right.
something where we certainly recommend pick a dose, whatever makes sense to start with, see how you feel. Ideally, look at biomarkers from blood tests after, say, 3 months at least. And then if you want to, adjust your dose and then again reassess after another 3 or 6 months, and really
Right.
dial in your dose for your program and your regimen. And then you can always adjust from there in the future as needed.
Right. And a lot of your testimonials talk about faster recovery, faster, decreased inflammation, and better training for like track athletes and looks like hikers and boogie boarders and that type of thing.
Yeah.
What are you seeing from our older population?
Well, I think everyone can be active and wants to be active. And so it's not just an elite level athlete who is going to benefit from the product. Everyone who is active in any way is going to generate some type of oxidative stress and inflammation as they exercise. Or if you
Right.
want to be more mobile and be able to, whatever it is, if you just want to be able to go on a longer walk, or if you want to do a 5K, if you want to play with children or grandchildren, whatever the goal is, just be able to go on a hike or walk around the park.
Right.
Any of those types of activities, you need to have a healthy, functioning body and mind. And so this is something that, again, if someone wants to monitor their progress on a short walk, maybe they can see, oh, now I can actually walk a little bit further or farther each day, and monitor those types of things. And so I think for anyone at any age, they can certainly benefit from astaxanthin. And so if someone is, older in age, they can look at how they feel doing whatever form of activity it is, or perhaps maybe if it's gardening or doing things with their hands, maybe their hands feel a little better as they're doing these activities. So they can look for those benefits. But again, I still think you have your day-to-day experiences of benefits, how your hands feel, how your joints feel, how your endurance is going, doing any type of activity. But also, again, it's as you're going into the doctor, checking on the various aspects of your blood tests and monitoring those, because that's something that can give you some concrete assessment of, am I benefiting? Is this the right dose, for example?
Right. And then, skin health, brain health, especially inflammatory disease. Chronic inflammatory really diminishes a lot of brain, creates a lot of brain flow, affects the cognitive abilities. Now, let's talk about what my doctor calls the sawdust of any pill. What are your carriers? Where do they come from?
Yeah, so the primary active ingredient, of course, is astaxanthin. And like I said, we produce it with very high purity. But if you just take astaxanthin by itself, without any formulation, or without some type of chemical modification, for example, to esterify it, where you can attach amino acids or fatty acids to the various ends of the molecule, um, astaxanthin on its own will not be absorbed. And so the highly pure astaxanthin that we produce needs to be formulated into a mixture that allows it to be well absorbed. And so when it's produced, it's a highly pure crystalline powder that under the microscope would be like a brick, very densely packed. And so if you were to absorb that, it'd be very hard for your body to absorb that very dense packing of the astaxanthin molecules. But what we do is we essentially kind of disperse it into a cloudy mixture, a matrix. And so we create a starchy matrix. So we take some modified food starch and a little bit of glucose syrup, very, very low levels compared to dietary consumption. We can come back to what that means. But we take this little bit of starch, a little bit of glucose syrup, and create this starchy matrix that you can disperse the astaxanthin throughout. And so it's like this pillowy, cloudy matrix of material that the astaxanthin molecules are dispersed amongst. And then when that is, administered, that can be well absorbed through your gut. And so that is the reason that we utilize the modified food starch, a little bit of glucose syrup, and the cornstarch to create these highly bioavailable particles or beadlets containing astaxanthin. And just to give you an example, when people hear glucose syrup, they're going to think, oh, there's sugar, I'm supposed to stay away from sugar. And certainly from a dietary standpoint, reducing sugar intake is a good thing. And so the amount of glucose syrup in this product is less than 1/10 of half a gram per capsule. And for comparison, for context, the FDA has regulations for foods. If you want to call a food or a beverage sugar-free, the threshold is actually half a gram. So we're actually less than 1/10 of that threshold of what would be considered sugar-free, from an FDA standpoint for like a food, for example. Or another comparison.
In one of those little blue packets than there is in your pills.
Yeah, exactly. Or even a cup of spinach has more than double the amount of sugar that a capsule would have. A cup of broccoli has more than a gram of sugar content. And so this is something that is a fraction of what you consume in a cup of broccoli or kale or spinach. And so it's just a tiny amount of glucose syrup to help the formulation kind of hold together. And the same thing with the modified food starch. We're talking very sub-gram levels that if you're consuming starches in your diet, you're consuming grams and grams of this type of material. And so these are very low levels, but they are there as a functional performance purpose. It's not something that is like a filler, because a lot of times supplements or drugs will have fillers, and this is not that. This is there for performance reasons. And then we also have very small amounts of vitamin E and vitamin C in the formulation, which again are not there actually for the health benefit, or they're not a filler. They're actually there because they're also antioxidants. And so we want them to be the frontline defense for the astaxanthin molecule on the shelf. So before you consume the capsule, we want astaxanthin to be protected and not dealing with the oxygen in the air. We want astaxanthin to be reacting as an antioxidant in your body. And so that's why there's a very small amount of vitamin E and vitamin C in the formulation to help with stability, to make sure that you have the fully intact astaxanthin when you're actually taking it yourself and absorbing it into your body. And so those are the key ingredients in the formulation. And then from an encapsulation standpoint, we use vegetarian capsules. And in order to fill the formulation into the capsules, there's a small amount of vegetable stearate and microcrystalline cellulose, or MCC, which help with the filling process to make sure we get the formulation into the capsules and it doesn't stick to the edges of the capsule and cause breakage of the capsule. So there's, again, small amounts of those ingredients in there for those purposes. Again, not as fillers or anything, but for the purpose of helping the encapsulation of the product.
And I'm looking here, guys. I've got it up on the site. It's on their site. If you go there and start looking through the slideshow, it's there. We're talking on any of these, they're less than 1/10 of a gram. It's like 0.08 G. Like when you feed this into your Fitness Pal, yes, we know I have one, everyone else has one. It's not even going to register it. And it's not because it's not in there, it's because it's not high enough to change anything.
Yeah, exactly. And so So those are the reasons why we have those ingredients. And like you said, we have a full listing of those both on the package, but also on the website with a little more explanation about why they're in there and what the exact levels are. Yeah, so that's what we have. And then we do have the capsules are white capsules just to make them aesthetically a little more pleasing, because the formulation has a bit of a mottled kind of salt and pepper type of appearance to the powder. And so we just utilize a white capsule, which is again a vegetarian capsule. It utilizes a naturally occurring pigment called titanium dioxide, which is something that has been used broadly in pharmaceutical, cosmetic, food applications. For example, toothpaste or gums, or even if you take a tablet of acetaminophen, any white medication that typically will have titanium dioxide, and so that we have a very small amount of that in there just to make the vegetarian capsule white. That is something that if anyone has a concern about that and doesn't want to consume a product containing titanium dioxide, the capsules can actually be easily opened, and you can disperse the contents into water, and it'll actually turn bright red, which is kind of fun, but it won't change the taste or the smell. So you could always mix it into any other type of nutritional drink or shake, for example,
does that
and
change
take
the
it that way.
releasal at all?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Does it change the releasal at all?
It does not change the release in terms of the bioavailability. We have not done a study to do a head-to-head comparison of the absorption from capsules versus from the beverage. But the capsules themselves are disintegrated in the gut rapidly. They're kind of immediate release. And so the temporal difference is probably not significant, and it's something that is absorbed throughout the GI process. And so scientifically, we would not expect that to be any significant difference. And we certainly had not had reports of people not experiencing benefits or experiencing better benefits or worse benefits one way versus the other. We think it's probably more just a personal preference or convenience, whether you want to take it in the capsule form or disperse the contents of a capsule into a beverage.
Okay. And we were talking about this because I'm always on the watch for things that say vitamin E, because there's a lot of sources of vitamin E. You use pharmaceutical grade vitamin E. It isn't derived from like aloe. It isn't derived from a natural mineral. It's actually formulated, just like the other parts of this.
Yeah, exactly. So the vitamin E, the vitamin C, and the astaxanthin are all produced via natural product total synthesis. And so this is, again, a laboratory process that constructs the molecule, and highly pure, highly consistent. This is something where if you want to know what you're getting in every capsule, then this is the way that you would want to do that. But again, this is not a source of vitamin E or C that one would get from, say, an actual vitamin E supplement or vitamin C supplement. These, again, are just very low levels that help with the shelf life stability and allow astaxanthin to be an antioxidant in your body rather than on the shelf. So yeah, very low levels relative to supplements or food sources. But again, we do utilize the laboratory process to do it with absolute purity and consistency.
Right. And the reason I bring that up is allergens. A lot of people are allergic to aloe. A lot of people are allergic to, shellfish, which is where, humans consume a lot of astaxanthin. Yours is not there. There isn't any remnants of shellfish in your astaxanthin.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not even that there's no remnants. It's just they're not even ever there in the first place, because it's such that the shellfish contain astaxanthin as part of their diet, but they're not actually producing it themselves. And in our case, we're producing it in the laboratory. So there's no shellfish component at all. So yeah, no shellfish. There's no gluten. There's none of the common allergens are included in the product. So this is something that if people have any of your typical major allergies, they should not have any issue taking X3.
Right. And the packages seem very airtight. Like they're sealed up very well, guys. These aren't like bottles or, and Lord knows we all have the supplement bottles set around that are like that amber color. These are, sealed up in a aluminum airproof bag that's shipped to you. Does anything really affect them, like, in transport? Like some products, when they're transported in the winter, there's issues with them. Does anything really hit with your products that you guys have had to work around?
We've been fortunate that it's been quite stable from a transport and shelf life standpoint. Um, with other products, for example, if you have soft gelatin capsules or gel caps, there have been reports with other products that if they're shipped and it's very hot, they can all stick together, and you open up the bottle and you have this big clump of kind of stuck together gelatin capsules. We don't have that, so they don't contain gelatin. They're not soft, they're not sticky, so they are not prone to melting and sticking together in that way. The astaxanthin molecule itself and the formulation have been tested for stability at high temperatures and high humidities for long periods of time, way longer than the product would be in transport for. So we have not experienced any issues with any stability in transit. As you mentioned with the packaging, we took a different approach. Rather than going with a typical plastic bottle or amber bottle, we wanted to do something that was very minimal from materials standpoint. And so we have these recyclable pouches that are both a very small amount of material and fully recyclable. So that's something that, again, the process to produce the astaxanthin is much more environmentally friendly than other ways of extracting astaxanthin from algae, for example, or from krill. So our process is more environmentally friendly, but also from a packaging standpoint, we want to, have minimal impact there, and that's why we chose a recyclable pouch. And it's also, we think, something that's more convenient if you want to throw it in your bag if you're traveling. It's not as bulky as a bottle. And then with the direct, shipment to your house, that's something that if people want to space out their shipments and do a few pouches at a time, then they can also, have less transport and kind of, consolidate their shipments if they prefer as well.
Very cool. So what's next?
What's next is really creating awareness for the product, because everyone has heard of omega-3s, everyone's heard of multivitamins or probiotics, but not really anyone has heard about astaxanthin. It's been something that's been growing in the scientific community. There's been an explosion of research over the last 20 to 25 years, and it's starting to become more known in various circles of health conscious consumers and healthcare professionals, but it's not a household name. It's not something that everyone knows about. And this is something that we believe, given its safety, given its impact on oxidative stress and inflammation throughout your body, it's something that can benefit virtually everyone. And so everyone should at least hear about it and be able to research it and consider it and explore it with their healthcare professional and figure out, hopefully it works for them. And so that's something that we believe takes conversation and trust and so we certainly like to build the conversation around astaxanthin. And so that's one of our major goals. In addition to that, we also have, various future product forms that we would hope to bring out, say a powder form that someone can pour directly into a beverage, or maybe a chewable form, things like that just allow it to be accessible for various individual preferences. And then finally, there's just the continuing research around the molecule that will continue to move forward. And we were actually fortunate several years ago to be invited by a program that's funded by the National Institutes of Health, specifically the National Institute on Aging, that looks at lifespan research in a highly rigorous program. And it's very hard to have an agent tested in this program. They only test a few each year, and they look at lifespan. And this is done in a mouse model because it's not practical to do lifespan research in humans, because you would need literally decades to see how long people live on your product. If you start them in young to middle age, or even in more advanced age, it would take many, many years to understand what works. And so this is a gold standard model in mice conducted at multiple different academic research institutions. And this is a program that has been going on for several years, and the study is wrapping up and being published as we speak. And so at some point, hopefully later this year, we'll be excited to see the publication and the results announced from that study. But that's a type of research that we think is important to continue to expand around the understanding of astaxanthin and what it impacts. And in this case, what was being researched was lifespan. And it was all based on prior research showing that astaxanthin extended lifespan in various other model organisms. So in roundworms, which are commonly tested in aging research, or in fruit flies, or in yeast, those are all tested, and researched for biological research and aging. And so we saw extensions of lifespan in those models. We also saw, in a collaboration with our academic research scientists at the University of Hawaii, that we activated the FOXO3 anti-aging gene, which is really exciting because this gene has been proven in very large-scale human studies and human data to be correlated with longevity, and living, not just living long, but living long and healthy. And so this is one of the few genes that's really connected to longevity. And we demonstrated with our collaborators at the University of Hawaii that astaxanthin actually increased the activation of that gene, which is a good thing. The more active it is, the more likely you are to live a longer, healthier life. And so understanding that we had an impact on that anti-aging gene was really exciting, and was really what helped to catalyze this NIH-funded study to select our form of astaxanthin to be tested in this study. So there's a lot of really exciting research in this space with astaxanthin, and it really fits in well with the overall movement around longevity, because there's a lot of interest in longevity, various lifestyle approaches, diet approaches, but also various different supplements and even medical interventions that people are pursuing. And so we've actually been able to show impact on this anti-aging gene and impact on lifespan in various models. And so this is another area that we think is going to be really exciting as we move forward to understand further.
Highly interesting. Awesome. Well, thank you for sitting down. Expect a YouTube video on this, because I'm going to do. You sent me 2 packets. I'm going to do the 60 days, and we'll see where we're at with it. All right.
Certainly. Yeah, I'd love to hear how you're feeling, how you're doing, and like you mentioned, if you have any inflammatory issues, this is something that can really help there. Inflammation is not just your swollen elbow or other joints. It's something that at the chronic level, this smoldering of inflammation can really drive health issues throughout your body, and even drive the aging process itself. Inflammaging is the term. And so this is something that we believe is a very safe and effective way to impact inflammation and hopefully support your longevity.
Right. Now, if you will, for our podcasting listeners, go ahead and give your web address.
Yeah, it's just ax3.life. And that's the website. And it's also on Instagram, our social handle there, ax3.life. And you can learn more. And we'd love to, hopefully provide more information about astaxanthin. And we invite everyone to join our community, because we really want to inspire and empower people to be their best selves longer and to age fearlessly. And so we believe that in addition to everything that one does with diet, exercise, and lifestyle and other supplements, that astaxanthin and specifically AX3 is really foundational to their daily health and longevity regimen. And so we're trying to build this community, create awareness around astaxanthin, and share and celebrate in the experiences that people achieve throughout life at any age.
And you ship internationally, right?
We ship to select countries. Different countries have different regulations, but at this point, we do ship to Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the UK, and the British Virgin Islands. And we are exploring additional international countries and regions as well. But primarily, in the
Canada
U.S.
and the
is.
UK are important, and I'll tell you why. Both of them have very much higher standards for supplements than we do in the US.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and even in the U.S., it's still you need to have something that is pure, and you can't claim anything on the label. And there are other
Correct.
supplements that will make various claims that are not actually compliant from an FDA standpoint, but we're very strict about that. And so we have science to back up what we're saying, but it's also within the aspects of the FDA regulations. And so, but like you said, yeah, different countries have different regulations, and so this is something that we believe is highly pure, and something that a healthcare professional or regulatory agent would look at and be comfortable with, because
Right.
we want this to be something that people take for the long run, and so it needs to be very pure and very safe.
Very much so. All right. Well, thank you for sitting down with me, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. All right,
Sounds
guys,
good.
we're going
Thanks
to
so
take
much
a
for having me.
break, and I'll be right back.
Hi, this is Sandy Starr. I'm a psychic and I work on Keen, and I have been working on Keen for over 22 years. You can reach me on 01068. I deal with a myriad of subjects, but I do specialize in relationships, marriages, divorces. Is he cheating? Is she cheating? Whatever the dynamic of the relationship is, I will guide you through. I've got amazing radar for cheaters, so I will tell you the truth if he or she is cheating. I can help with any subject you need me to help you with besides relationships, and I look forward to hearing from you. Again, you can reach me through Keen. My extension number is 01068. I really look forward to hearing from you and helping you with whatever you need me to help you with.
Hi, I'm Tracy Van. I'm a psychic medium and I work with tarot cards. I also practice Reiki and access bars. I would like to share with you what a reading with me is like. It is a blended reading of psychic and mediumship, and I deliver these messages exactly as they come through. I'm not going to mince words or add any padding. I am a professional, reliable, and honest communicator. I have readings available anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour. You can book a reading with me at tracyvan.com. That's TracyVann.com. And no, I'll always tell you exactly what you need to hear.
Hey everybody, Natalie here from The Pendulum's Path. If you are in need of guidance, direction, spiritual connection, healing, or more, you have come to the right place. I have worked as a psychic and a medium for over 3 years, connecting people from all over the world with their loved ones, giving them insight and guidance into their current situations, their past healings, their blockages, and what they need to know in order for them to have a better future. It would be my absolute honor if you would come to my website at www.thependulumspath.com. Visit my shop. I have a whole bunch of crystals, oils, balms, mystery boxes, and more. And visit my services. I offer 15-minute, 30-minute, and 60-minute sessions. I also have email readings available. If you're not comfortable with the one-on-one session with me, or if you just want to try me out, I encourage you to come visit me at the Pendulum's Path, and let's get you back on the right track today.
Hey everybody, Lady Gwendolyn here from Rowan Temple of Light, and I'm here to tell you about our events this summer. First up is Beltane in the Hills, May 13th, and that is from 1 to 6. We have entertainment, we have a bunch of vendors, we have a fairy photo shoot. It's going to be exciting. You having any questions, reach out to Earth Magic or to myself. After that, we have Central West Virginia Pagan Pride, August 19th. That's at Holly Gray Park from 11 to 5 for the day. And we will have Sarah Masters coming down from Pittsburgh to be our keynote speaker. We have some great classes for that. So if you want to get involved, reach out to Rowan Temple of Light at Gmail, or just follow us along on Facebook at Rowan Temple of Light, and we look forward to seeing you out in the community. See you there.
All right, welcome back. Hi, Joe. How are you, honey?
Oh, busy as ever.
Yeah, it looks like you've been busy. You've been
Yeah,
having
a little bit,
fun.
little bit.
Yes. Hello, Dark Hunters. Hello, Melissa. Hello, Brenda. How are you? Okay, so I'm going to drop into this conversation, but we're going to stay here for long.
Oh,
Dark
okay.
Huntress. Most likely, since Nitro's had one there since, I don't know, 1974, it is actually illegal in Nitro to be dressed in. You have to have one article of male clothing. If you are, or one article of your biogender clothing. That's been a city ordinance since back when I was a baby drag.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
So, I hope that they don't. Little Fayetteville, West Virginia thought they had to, and they did. I think we're going to see this play out very quickly. I'd say over the next 2 years. There's going to be a lot of cities rewriting ordinances.
Yeah. For what good it may do.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, but decades ago,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can write the ordinance. No one's going to give a crap. It's not going to make it through the Supreme Court. You're never going to have the right for that. Decades ago.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of cities are going to end up finding out it's way easier
Uh-huh.
to just not do that,
Mm-hmm.
or to go, well, that was cute. Now let's repeal it before it costs us a damn arm and a leg defending
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. But we'll talk about that on Friday. That is on my agenda to go off on.
Absolutely. I mean, we survived J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. How much worse could it get?
Oh, please. J. Edgar Hoover's FBI was a joke in a library.
I know. That was kind of the point.
Although he was a good queen. He was a good queen.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's what I'm saying. We survived J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. How bad could it get?
Right. All right. So moving on. Let's talk about what you've been waking up to the past couple mornings as I've been digging into this because it was quite scary to say the least.
Oh. Oh, yes. So, 8 passenger and connections. That one?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. You were nodding like, no.
Oh, I'm just looking at the story going, ugh.
Oh, goodness. Oh, sorry. Trying to get air. So, yeah, so you got a nice one for us for everyone else. Who is Ruby Frank, the mom of the 8 passengers YouTube channel arrested on abuse charges? Oh, the family channel had long been plagued by concerns and criticisms from viewers over the parents' treatment of the 6 children. So Ruby Frank, the mother behind the defunct family YouTube channel 8 Passengers, was arrested on 2 counts of aggravated child abuse Wednesday after police found a malnourished child with open wounds and duct tape on their extremities. Frank was arrested alongside her business partner and collaborator Jody Hildebrandt, who is the founder of the controversial life counseling organization Connections. That is Connections with a great big X in the middle of it.
Yes.
The 2 women create advice videos that critics say promote a harsh style of parenting. That's to say the least. Frank has come under fire in the past for her now deleted parenting blogs. Viewers have accused Frank and her husband Kevin of being abusive for years. Ruby Frank and Hildebrandt did not respond to emails and calls requesting comment. It was not immediately clear if they had attorneys representing them. As news of the rest of the arrest circulates, Here's what to know about the controversial family influencer.
Well, first of all, yes, they do have lawyers. Looking at the Snark Cart documents, Ruby Frank at least has a lawyer. She has the same lawyers as she had for her divorce case. That was pending.
Yeah. Because your divorce lawyer is a great person to represent you. Wait, so there actually is a divorce?
It's not filed yet. These are the ones she retained.
Talk about a scandal in the middle of a divorce. That's just
right. And this is why I've been so hesitant about launching some stuff, is because of this environment. Because she was a mental fitness coach.
Which there's argument of what's required for that, besides being able to say that 5 times fast.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as this article about not responding to emails, calls, requests for comment, there's a problem. They're both in jail. They don't get email.
Oh, this is true, because they were they
held without bond.
Yeah. It's a funny thing, and not funny, haha, that when, your child is found with, duct tape and wounds,
mm-hmm.
judges aren't very open to bail.
No.
That's kind of like, what the hell?
Right. Malnourished. She was making millions off of her YouTube channel. You're telling me she cannot afford food for her children?
Well, but that's been a large part of the controversy with her.
Right.
Because she has often talked about using food as a penalty.
Right.
Denying food from the children.
Right.
In order to correct behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a little pissed right now about this case, and here's why. DCS has had numbers and numbers of reports of abuse. Numbers. No knock on the door, there is nobody home. Nobody answers the door. Nobody comes to the door. For over a year, the neighbors were reporting the children being left alone, the children being, like there's video evidence, like they are compiling video evidence, and the Google Doc is huge. I looked at it earlier, and it's like, holy crap. There's more evidence for the abuse these children suffered than there is about the election fraud.
Right. That's, and not to tell anyone how to get away with, child abuse, but it is one of the unfortunate sticking points that when you take a child out of school, which these kids were homeschooled, right. At least here in the later years, that takes them away from one set of mandatory reporters who can document evidence and take photos of clearly visible injuries and immediately call someone to go, "Hi, social worker, do you see what I see? Because this looks like child abuse."
Right.
So that takes them out of the realm of one set of mandatory reporters.
Right.
Then you turn around, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say these kids don't have really good health care. As in, they're probably not getting all their well visits and everything else.
Right.
And I believe they've moved a couple of times, haven't they?
They've moved a couple of times. They've avoided, they have multiple homes. It's debate whether the home the child came out of the window of, escaped from, is a studio for connections with an ex, or if it is actually Jody's home.
Right.
It's like, hello, DCS, where are you?
Well, the problem is they're nowhere that they need to be.
Right.
When they need to be there. Because reports are very useful, and I'm not saying don't waste your time.
Right.
Make the report.
Yes.
The problem is, until the social worker can lay eyes on the children.
Right.
All they have is words.
Right.
There's no mandatory reporters involved. There is no medical opinions involved. There is no social worker opinion involved. There's just a bunch of people making claims.
Right.
So it's sort of like, so when you talk about YouTube celebrity, we talk about the worst possible thing that can happen,
right.
typically being swatting.
Yeah.
Because that is a scary, frightening, violent, potentially deadly way to attack someone.
Right.
Like, don't do that. Like, that's how people die. I don't care how much you hate me. Killing me by abuse of, reporting an event, not the way to go about, taking out your issues.
Right.
I have email addresses. Please send. You can say whatever you want. I don't guarantee I read all of it, but you can say whatever you want.
Right.
That's a more constructive and less deadly means of communication. Right. But the other one, sometimes more insidious one, is you get a lot of reports of child abuse and neglect.
Right.
Like, you bring your kids out into center stage of YouTube.
Right.
And become a mommy vlogger, and you vlog your kids and look at my cute kids, and here's my parenting tips. You're not always going to get agreed parents.
Right.
That is a very diverse group of people who have different opinions.
Right.
And what one person sees as, harsh parenting.
Right.
Or being a strong disciplinarian. Or being abusive may not actually legally rise to that level.
Right.
And it's very easy to make reports that so-and-so's abusing her kids. So-and-so's abusing her kids. So this is like when swatting goes nicely.
Right.
Because if you bring the full weight of DCF down on someone, or any child advocacy state organization down on someone,
right,
this can turn into a nightmare.
Yeah.
And there are situations where people go through it over and over and over and over just because someone's not happy with the way their kids are being parented.
This is different though. And this is
right. No, I'm not saying like there's evidence here.
Like why there was not DPS involvement when she took her 15-year-old and kicked him out of his bedroom and made him sleep on a beanbag is beyond me. Why the teacher did not report when she refused to take her child a lunch because the 6-year-old forgot to pack her lunch is beyond me.
Again, on the 6-year-old, while that was still in the school system, that is one incident that seems like an unreasonable parent being harsh.
Right.
Depending upon how the school handled that, if they went ahead and gave the child a lunch,
right,
then they dealt with an unreasonable parent and the child was not neglected.
Right.
If they didn't give the child a lunch, then at that point, the general rule would apply that unless you know otherwise,
right,
and can prove otherwise, technically a kid missing a meal,
right,
is not grounds for child abuse. That definitely says you might want to take a closer look at this kid and see what's going on.
Right.
But it doesn't on its own, like, kids forget their lunches. Parents aren't able to make it.
Right.
And it depends upon the school system and how seriously they take their, providing for the, best interests of the child as to what happens next. Now, we hear about schools all the time that deny children lunches because their balances are too high.
Right. But to have a
So,
parent text you back and go, well, she didn't pack it, her bad luck, please don't give her a lunch, so she'll naturally learn to pack her lunch, I think is a little damn much.
for a 6-year-old, I agree with that, but at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
that's a potentially gray area.
Right.
Because you, like, assuming that the child had breakfast and the child will have dinner,
Right.
skipping a lunch, like, it's not inherently the end of the world one time as a
Right.
one-off event, or okay, maybe it happens like a couple of times in a school year,
Right.
or even up to like 1 or 2 times a month.
Right.
That, like, you know, little Susie doesn't have a lunch, and mom has clearly instructed us, do not give her a lunch.
Right.
You know, at that point, it's kind of make your own choice.
Right.
What makes the most sense in the situation? Again, it falls in the category of harsh parenting that a lot of people would say borderlines abusive.
Right.
Because again, that's it in a bubble.
Right.
Like, I don't think it's reasonable to expect a 6-year-old to totally have their shit together.
Right.
Like, that's part of being a 6-year-old, is you're kind of doofy for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like, someone has, like, this is part of raising a child, is,
Right.
you know, there's this process there.
Right.
We don't come out, 40-year-old accountants ready to go do taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not how it works.
Right.
But a lot of parents would argue that 6-year-old is, potentially should be responsible.
Right. But
And
yeah. But
you don't get to eat.
Well, not only that, but she uses food a lot for that. You're going to lose the privilege of eating.
Hmm?
If you don't quiet down, you're going to lose the privilege of eating if you don't stop. If you're going to lose the privilege of this. And I'm like, not good. Not good. Like, no.
But how many bad kids were sent to bed without dinner?
I get that. And I understand that. But I don't get this behavior.
I don't think it's the same thing.
No.
But I think sometimes that's the argument.
Right.
Is we're talking about a one-off event.
Right.
But even if that is a frequent, recurrent punishment for these kids,
mm-hmm.
we're not talking about necessarily starving them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you lost all privilege of food forever.
Right.
Like, you can't eat for a month. That is clearly child abuse. Everyone is like, yep, that's child abuse. Like, yep, I know child abuse when I see it, and that's child abuse.
Right.
But saying that, you're, that because of your behavior, you're going to bed early,
mm-hmm.
and you're not going to have dinner. How many of us in our generation grew up with that?
Well, and that's one thing. That is not the whole thing here. That is not the point of malnutrition.
Right. And I get that. I'm totally on board with that. I'm just saying sometimes, like, trying to take what's in a video,
mm-hmm.
and especially, like, a very stressed out parent talking to their child.
Right.
And build an entire abuse case off of it can be a little tricky.
Right.
Because, like, okay, what's actually going on?
Right.
Like, what's actually happening? Like, was this just a ticked off mom who said some things she shouldn't have?
Right.
But then proceeded to do her parental responsibility and made sure this child ate, and was just using, force and a scare tactic for compliance.
Right. And then I have to go into I have to use my own prior knowledge and go into this. Okay, lesions, open sores on a child where the duct tape and rope was, that's infected to the point that you're using gauze.
At the duct tape and rope point, we're clearly
right
moving into abuse.
Right.
As in, you're going to need some damn good explanations that are going to have to put, a very, very clear light on why this was the better choice than something.
Right.
Like, now, arguably you could have children that sleepwalk and potentially are doing dangerous things, and you stressed out parents scared for their safety did something really dumb. And you, like, okay, we're going to get this child to a doctor, we're going to do a sleep study, we're going to get them with a therapist, we're going to figure this out, we're going to monitor you for a while.
Right.
That's alarming behavior. That wasn't your best first choice.
Right. I mean, this isn't like Christopher from, what is her? The one you always call me because of my eyebrows.
Joan Crawford?
Yeah, this isn't the jacket that they made Christopher sleep in. This is duct tape and rope binding them to a bed. Which is more than their brother got. But
I'm not trying to defend the behavior. And I can very much go with you on the idea that this was bad. I'm there. I'm just saying there are unfortunately situations where parents get in over their head, start trying to solve a problem, and is it child abuse? Technically, yes. Right. Was it done with a greater benefit in mind? Now, if you're just duct taping your child to a bed or tying them to a bed because you don't want to deal with the child, like you're restraining their motion purely as punishment.
Right. Well, according to their therapist, coach, these children didn't need to be around other children. They were a danger to them.
Yeah. I think you're going to need a lot more than a therapist for that one. Like, that's because I'm sorry, the operator of Connections is not a doctor. She's just a licensed clinical social worker, correct?
She was a licensed clinical therapist.
Right.
She was suspended.
Okay. Well, but it looked like she was reinstated as well.
Right. But again, for sharing patient information with BYU. Okay. I don't think she learned her lesson, because we look at the husband who was fired from BYU. Seems like she may have done it again.
Yeah, she's a counselor.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's she is only a counselor. She is not. There's some original detail there, or additional detail there.
Okay.
All right. So, so she is not Dr. Hildebrand.
Right.
She is a therapist, and I think you're going to need someone with some more letters, bigger letters, more important letters after their name that gets referred to as a doctor, in order to start calling two minor children, a danger to other children. Like you like there's typically a lot more involved than your therapist or your counselor.
Right.
Making that declaration.
Right. Now, what's interesting, what's scary interesting, and this makes me wonder just how big this goes in Utah, is the similarities to the Lori Vadell case.
I just love that someone has bought JodyHildebrand.com and is using it to jump out all of her information, and the fact that she is involved in a child abuse arrest and her horrible beliefs. And her license being on probation, and That is a whole ass website for anyone interested. And I just stumbled on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I appreciate that. And they're doing it very politely.
Right.
Like they're being, or at least so far from what I've read, I can't
right.
say that's true through the whole site. But yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, do we have the arresting documents?
Oh, I don't know.
We have calendar details. They've been charged with
a statement from the Santa Clara Ivans Public Safety Department press release.
Okay, let's go with the statement.
Okay, go ahead and read it.
Yes.
On August 30th, 2023, around 10:50 hours, a report came into our dispatch center regarding a juvenile asking for help. The calling party stated the juvenile appeared to be emaciated and malnourished with open wounds and duct tape around the extremities. The juvenile was asking for food and water. The condition of the juvenile was so severe that they were seen by Santa Clara Ivans EMS and transported to a local area hospital. Information was obtained by police that other juveniles in similar condition may be in a nearby home. Officers arrived at the home and searched the residence, locating another juvenile in a similar physical condition of malnourishment. That juvenile was also transported by EMS to the hospital for treatment. A search warrant was obtained in connection with this incident. During the search of the home, evidence was located consistent with the markings found on the juvenile. The Department of Child and Family Services was contacted, and in a joint effort with the Springville Police Department, 4 minor children were taken into the care of the Department of Child and Family Services. Jody Hildebrandt and Rudy Frank were arrested in connection with the incident. Due to the sensitive nature of this case, no additional information will be released at this time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, we can actually sit and watch this if we wanted to. It's going to be WebExed.
Okay.
Yeah. Meaning we can watch the court proceedings.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's going to be an interesting.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, this sounds like an extreme version because I'm having flashbacks.
Yeah.
Not because it's happened to me, but of things people describe.
Right.
This sounds like a modified version of like conversion therapy.
It sounds like extreme weird therapy. It sounds like it is demented. It sounds like that it is very much like the Lori case.
Well, I struggle with saying the words conversion therapy because we all know that's crap. But welcome to Utah.
Right.
And I don't think it was specifically like I'm not calling it conversion therapy. I don't think that's what was happening. I think this is a form though of therapy,
mm-hmm.
and I use air quotes around that heavily. In which you're basically trying to break this child down.
Right.
You don't like the disrespect, you don't like the behavior, you don't like whatever.
The distortion, the not living in truth. These are their buzzwords. Pay attention to these buzzwords.
Yeah.
More importantly, pay attention to these buzzwords. Living in truth. Being distorted. Those sound like Lori Valdez, the stuff that came out of the Lori Valdez case. Problem with the children.
Lori Daybell?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but basically the whole point of this is to break these kids down.
Right.
Psychologically, emotionally, physically.
Right.
To where they can no longer resist. This is like a boot camp from them. And it occurs a lot in like conversion therapy.
Mm-hmm.
It's used a little different, but fundamentally the same thing is you weaken someone to the point that they can no longer resist you.
Right.
Not like sexually resist you, but I mean like they have no ability to argue with you because they quite frankly almost have no ability to live. So
Right.
you quit arguing at some point and go food and water, whatever it takes.
Right.
But no, that's it sounds like that's what she was trying to accomplish. And basically one of the kids got free.
Right.
And that makes more sense if it is Jody Hildebrandt's house.
Mm-hmm.
Why it was occurring there separate from the other 4 kids.
2 kids. You have 2 adult children in this scenario that were not in communication with the parents. Like they had gone no contact.
Understandably.
Yeah.
Understandably. Like not winning any Mom of the Year awards. Yeah.
No, that's not what family vloggers are supposed to be showing. And what gets me is the scary advice she was giving people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and a lot of it, and it had less to do with the advice and more to do with like the thinking that gets you to the point of giving the advice.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you sit there and you try to process it, and it's like, but wait.
Right.
Like that requires me to accept a whole bunch of things.
Right.
As foundational, to get to the point that you're at.
Right.
And yeah. But yeah, definitely stay tuned on this one. I think this one's going to be a wild ride.
Right.
Because something tells me there's going to be a made-for-TV movie.
Well, I could understand a major TV movie. What I'm more so concerned is how many others do we have out there? How many other cells of what I want to call this cult is out there? They were running classes that were running $2,000 a month. $2,000 a month. And I'm looking at one of their connection pictures here. And granted, it is like cut off because it's from a TikTok. How many other connection, like they should be taking her client list and checking on them?
Well, from American SPCC, the statistics on child maltreatment and neglect show the severity of the problem. 4 million child maltreatment referral reports received in 2021. Mm-hmm. Child abuse reports involve 7.2 million children.
Right.
90.6% of victims are maltreated by one or both parents.
Right.
Only 2.9 million children received any prevention and post-response services.
Mm-hmm.
156,576 children received foster care services. 444,838 victims, 76% are neglected.
Mm-hmm.
93,907 victims, 16% are physically abused. 59,328 victims, 10.1% are sexually abused. 37,361 victims, 6.4% are psychologically maltreated. Highest rate of child abuse in children under age 1, 25.3 per 1,000.
Right, but what I'm talking about is the patients of this therapy, and I'm using air quotes.
And therapies like it, and books that she has written, because she's also an author. And I'm not trying to make her the nexus of all child abuse.
Right.
I'm just saying that these kinds of ideas and these broken parenting models,
right,
are in many cases what are creating child abuse and neglect.
Right.
Like the scary part is I don't think all of these parents are trying to be bad to their kids.
Right.
Like, I don't think they just woke up and went, yeah, I'm going to beat the crap out of my children. I'm going to abuse the crap out of them. I'm just going to abuse these kids because it's a day that ends in Y and I feel like it.
Right.
I don't think they're there. I think a lot of kids or a lot of parents
Right.
end up hearing words like what Jody says.
Right.
And the read the books and try to have this very faith-centered, good Christian upbringing for their children. And it goes really wrong.
Right.
Because it's built on a lot of broken concepts.
Right.
That basically the world is this horrible, dangerous place that kids have no business being in.
Right.
And that, she effectively need to lock them up until they're adults and just, train them through any means necessary how to be good adults.
Yeah.
And a lot of it starts at a level that, like, these kids don't even know what they're doing wrong, to know what they're doing wrong, to know what they're doing wrong.
And it's totally scary for me, some of the buzzwords they're using, some of the things they're doing, and just where it's all limited at.
Again, I think a lot of it's built around the idea that they're trying to help these kids. And they're just so...
built on the idea of trying to help these kids, and maybe built on the idea of trying to, build connectivity or whatever with these kids. I get that. But at the same time, duct taping them to a bed is not helping them. Starving them is not helping them.
And again, this is at the outer edge. And I think that by the point that some of these parents get there, they really truly think these children are a danger to themselves and others.
Right.
And it's like, oh, your foundation is so damn broken.
Right.
That got you here.
Right.
Where you think, like, when you say these kids are a danger to themselves and others, what do you mean? Like, if this kid is gonna, go pull a child's play,
right,
and like attack people with knives and run them over with cars, and like, if that's what we're talking about, like, you need to get an MD involved,
right,
and figure out what you do with this kid. You don't duct tape them to a bed. I'm not saying that's going to be much worse than what might happen. In terms of pretty medical devices and ways that you can restrain people. But not something to take on one's own. Ever.
Well,
for any reason.
For any reason. And I don't know. Let's just start with children. Do not get tied down to beds. Even in the medical profession, every 2.5 hours, you have to release a patient from restraints.
Yeah. Otherwise, they get wounds.
Yeah.
And then you have to do wound care.
Yeah.
Which is going to get better as long as you're using restraints.
Right.
It's a vicious cycle, really.
Exactly. And it's a total vicious cycle. It's a total insane cycle. And I hope they put these two under the jail.
Right. Well, and I think the larger problem is a disconnect with why you can't just walk into most doctors' offices and go, this is my child, they're a danger to themselves and others.
Right.
They're damning their souls to hell with their, TikTok and their whatever. Like, whatever started this.
Right.
Why you can't just walk this child into a doctor's office, an actual legitimate medical professional's office,
Right.
and have a doctor go, that's a real problem, we need to treat that.
Right.
And instead the doctor goes, okay, little Susie, go sit over there. Mommy and I need to have a little talk about her meds. Because, and therapy and a lot of other things. Because, no.
Right.
But there seems to be a total disconnect as to why you have to go to some random person that is a counselor or a therapist but doesn't have an MD, isn't a doctor.
Right.
And it's because these are not appropriate treatments for anyone.
Right.
Let alone children.
Right. And I don't think it's appropriate. Like, one, I'm pissed at the father. Where the hell were you? Like, why wasn't your lawyers on top of getting custody? I understand children should stay with their mother, all that bullshit. You had, like, there's a Google Doc at this point that's reaching storage limits for Google.
With all the clips of every time.
Right.
And I'm wondering if this is a situation where he had to put on his mask first, or he could help someone else put on theirs.
Right.
Because, because we talked about this a little bit as we're watching this, and I'm afraid this is one of those situations potentially because he has not been arrested.
Right.
And I'm kind of hinging everything on that until they arrest him.
Right.
I'm going to go with the theory that he got out when he realized, like, it crossed limits for him.
Right.
And that this isn't right. But at the same time, he's been drugged down this path so far that it feels like he's, like, you instinctively know this is wrong.
Right.
But everyone surrounding you is telling you this is right.
Well, see, here's the thing. She has a pattern.
Yeah.
Okay? Jody has a pattern of going in, breaking up marriages. She's very much purity culture, no porn, no masturbation, you know, very much anti, what's the word I'm looking for here? There's a nice word for it.
Well, she's basically really big into the addiction scene.
Yeah.
Of, you know, spousal addiction, work addiction, shopping addiction, like, and it's here on that lovely webpage I was talking about.
Yeah.
Shopping addiction, electronic game addiction, sleep addiction, social media addiction, driving addiction, receiving compliments addiction, exercise addiction, eating addiction, drugs or alcohol addiction, sex addiction, pornography addiction, hobby addiction, entertainment addictions. And apparently the list just goes on.
Everything is an addiction.
But yeah.
All right.
Oh, and God forbid you be sexually attracted to your spouse.
Right.
Alarm bells should go off to anyone who tells you you should not be sexually attracted to your spouse.
Right.
Like, that seems really effed up.
Right.
But we see that in other contexts.
Right.
That, you know, that maybe not those exact words, but, you know, most of Christianity does like this concept of sex is for procreation, not for entertainment.
Right.
And based on your denomination is how bad that is.
Right.
Like, Methodists are like, whatever. You know, versus like the Baptists, they're like, you know, you're going to hell.
Right.
Like, somewhere in that spectrum.
Right.
Like, is it ruining your life?
Yes.
You know, are you Bonnie and Clyde? No. Then go have fun with your spouse.
Right. All right, so let's flip over and go for Are You an Asshole?
All right. I do not have one ready. I hope you do.
Because it's guaranteed these two are, but let's see if you are.
Oh, come on. That's shooting fish in a barrel right there.
Hey, it's easy.
I mean, does it get any more clear cut?
All right.
I'm just glad the children are getting it.
I'm glad they're
this
safe. I just
situation-
hope that they get real therapy from a qualified therapist.
I
And
would say with the attention this is getting and the court attention being given to this, they're getting great therapy out of it.
well, see, there's a problem within Utah in general. There's a lot of LDS therapists that hold to LDS standards, and that's not what these kids need right now.
No, it isn't. No. They need some, like, freewheeling, weed smoking hippie.
Right,
You're just like, all right, children.
right.
Basically they need a Miss Frizzle, okay?
Mhm.
Just put them on a magic school bus.
Right,
It'll all work out.
right.
And I'm sorry, I'm just a flippant human being, and I shouldn't be in this situation. It's just, it pains me.
Well, it's just terrible. And this is now the second case of children with dark eyes and not living in their truth and living in distortion coming out of Utah.
Yeah, Utah, get it together.
Yeah.
Like,
Quickly.
but we've also had the conversation. This seems like Goddard version 2.0. Like this is the second gen
Mm-hmm.
of like Goddard teaching gone amok.
Right.
Like you created a generation of kids.
Right.
Because I'm sorry, she's 41. She's the same age as me.
Right.
So you created this generation of 80s, 90s kids, born in the 80s, lived through the 90s, became adults in like 2000 or so, that were raised under Goddard and all this spare the rod, spoil the child concept,
Right.
and the harshness of that I think lost a lot of themselves.
Right.
And the ability to be children.
Mm-hmm.
And to understand children and to be anything other than this Christian robot.
Right.
Now having children.
Right.
Now raising children. And creating like this second generation effect.
Right.
Of like, what do you do when you're a parent that as a child you were stripped of any ability to be a child and told you were basically burning in hell for everything you did?
Right.
And so you have to conform quickly to a lot of things you don't even understand.
Right.
And then you now have to go forward with that childhood and become a parent.
Right.
Without realizing any of this was wrong, that any of this was bad. So anyway, moving on. Oh, it pains me.
Here you go.
All right.
This one's interesting.
Am I the asshole for not letting my cousin go to my father's funeral? I, 23 female, had just lost my father a week ago. He unfortunately lost his battle with cancer and drug addiction. I had found out while my aunt's family and I were moving out and cleaning up our old house. 2 days later, while we are cleaning and making repairs, my older cousin, 28 male, went on a rant about how I should be cleaning the kitchen instead of his girlfriend, even though she said she didn't mind because she was living in our house rent-free. However, he kept going on and on about how I was a trifling female because I wouldn't clean up and how I wasn't fulfilling my role. I was patching holes as well as scrubbing the walls, and I filled up most of the U-Haul by myself. He goes on for 20 minutes, and even his girlfriend says for him to can it. I finally got tired of him and told him, okay, I get it. He went into a fit of rage and said to me, no, you don't get it. Be quiet and listen to me. I said after this long, I wasn't. He said that's what's wrong with me, a low-value female. That's in quotes. And it was his right to speak over me as a man, and if I wanted to shut him up, I better make him do it. Instead, I decided to walk away and try to go upstairs and help my aunt and uncle with repairs in their room instead. However, he kept following me, saying I needed to learn how to shut up and listen when a man is talking. I said, okay, whatever. He responded, F you, B word. I told him to go F himself. Then he replied, F you and F yo dead daddy. I flew off the handles and threw my phone at him, telling him not to talk about my father that way, but he kept going on, saying, F your dead daddy that no one cared about and nobody cares about you. I told him he was the most useless person in the household. He charged at me, but my aunt and uncle had ran out their rooms to intervene before he could get to me. My aunt pulled me to the side and said I provoked him, knowing he has a temper, and I should have let him go on. While I was getting chastised, my uncle let my cousin drone on outside about how he was going to beat my ass when I came to the driveway, that I contribute nothing to the household. I work 12 hours a day in a factory and pay rent and his phone bill, that I was a waste of space and he didn't have to respect me because I wasn't related by blood. I expressed to my aunt, as the next of kin who's in charge of putting my father to rest, that I decided my older cousin could not come. My aunt wasn't happy, to say the least, saying I was going overboard by not letting him attend my father's funeral. I am wondering if I am the asshole for not wanting him at my father's funeral.
Right.
Not the asshole, just across the board, not the asshole. Please, please, please get out of this situation. Dear sweet Jesus. Like, is there explanation needed? Like, hi and welcome to your incel household.
Right.
I'd like, not the asshole. Like, if anything, he should be happy not to go to the funeral of someone that, quote unquote, nobody cared about. I mean, that is really, really, and I'm sorry, I hate that you just lost your father a week ago and you had to deal with that.
Right. But I also think not the asshole and totally a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, you don't have to let someone go off like that.
No.
I understand that's how your aunt has decided to deal with it, which is probably what's allowed it to get to this point.
Right.
But no, buckle up, Buttercup. There's a whole real world out there.
Right.
That you were, quite frankly, as nice as could be.
Right. Well, I'm seeing more and more of this crap of alpha male bullshit. Okay, let's just remind everyone, alphas are not male. The wolf theory has already been proven impossible. Not how wolf packs actually act.
Right, and more importantly, the author of that study went on to not only disclaim it, but to point out just how flawed.
Right.
Like, the whole theory was that it was a total misunderstanding for which he wished he could have never done.
Right.
Because it's a whole mess.
Right.
This isn't really even like alpha male. This is a whole next level.
Well, it's the Andrew Tate alpha male BS.
Yeah. This is incel bullshit.
Right.
Like, is where I'm at. Like, hate to say it, but when you hear a man say the word female, just run.
Mm-hmm.
Just run. Like, in terms of females shouldn't do this and females shouldn't do that.
Right.
Like, that's not, no, that never ends well. Never.
All right, so the poll is up. Is she the asshole for not allowing the disrespectful cousin to attend her father's funeral?
Yeah. I think disrespectful is the nicest thing you can call it. All right, so what we got up next? We doing a relationship?
Next is relationship advice.
Beautiful.
This is interesting. So we'll take it.
All right. My 29 female sister-in-law, female 32, is competitive with my son, male 10 months. PSA, this involves my son indirectly, who's 10 months old and a minor, so not sure if this is allowed per the rules, but it's really between my sister-in-law and the adult family. My female 29 husband, male 35, and I had our son, male 10 months, in October of last year. I was diagnosed with PCOS-related infertility, and it took us about 1.5 years with fertility treatments to get pregnant. To say we were excited was an understatement. May of last year, we had a gender reveal party, which my sister-in-law, female 32, who we'll call Julie for the sake of this post, attended. Julie informed me that she and her husband were trying for a second child. She expressed to me concern because it was taking longer than with her first, and I reassured her that it can take a while for the healthiest of couples and not to worry. She texted me the following month informing me that she was indeed pregnant and due February of this year. I expressed my congrats and happiness for her. Throughout the remainder of the last year, we chatted back and forth about pregnancy and hospital experiences. My husband comes from a big family with a total of 5 kids, with Julie being the youngest. Julie always seemed like she got drowned out by a lot of chatter at family gatherings, and I always made a point to talk to her because I felt bad. We've always gotten along great. A couple months before my son was born, my husband was interviewing for his dream job that he applied 2 years ago. He got the job, which was exciting, but we'd have to move to the East Coast, which is about 7 hours from where we were living. We talked about it a lot and decided this was an opportunity we couldn't afford not to take. So at the end of January this year, we moved. We promised to video call and send pictures as much as we could and plan visits. Around that same time, Julie gave birth to a healthy boy. Fast forward to July this year. My husband and I made a trip with our son to visit family and unfortunately attend an unexpected funeral. It was a bittersweet time. My husband was struggling with the loss, but we were happy to be with family and everyone visiting with us. We had a family gathering for my husband's side, and Julie was there, of course. I held our nephew, and so did my husband. Everyone else was getting time in with our son, and when Julie went into the other room to feed her nephew, I felt a tug to go sit with her because I know how it feels to have to separate from the adult conversation that you're so looking forward to tend to your baby. So I sat with her and we talked about kids and formula. A couple weeks later, my husband informed me that Julie didn't interact with our son at all when we were visiting. I didn't notice it in the moment because there were so many different people to talk with and splitting my attention with my son, but I realized he was right. I thought that was odd because we were there for hours and there was plenty of opportunity. Then my husband also pointed out that anytime someone sends pictures of their kids in his family group text thread, Julie doesn't acknowledge it and in turn sends 10 pictures of her kids. I knew she sent a lot of photos, but my theory was maybe she needed adult interaction and was using anything as an excuse to interact. It's only gotten worse the past couple of months. My husband has been texting his other sisters privately about it, and they've all noticed as well and are irritated with it. They think it's Julie's need for attention and validation, like an insecurity. Between my husband and his siblings, there are a total of 8 grandkids. That's a lot of kids to have to share attention. Tonight, my husband made spaghetti. Yay, we are going to have our son try it for the first time. He loved it, and we were taking photos for the family because spaghetti is messy and makes for hilarious photos. My husband sent one photo in the family chat. A couple people responded, and then Julie messages asking if anyone had gotten her message. She had messaged earlier in the day updating nephew's health stats, and only one person responded to that. My father-in-law said no after responding to our picture, and Julie sent a repeat message of what she sent earlier. She got a response from mother-in-law and father-in-law, and then she proceeded to go on about how she can't believe how big nephew is, and then sent a picture of nephew. My husband was not happy. He's at a point where he just wants to not invite her to her son's birthday next month and mimic everything she does in group chat. I'm frustrated as a mother because my son is passive-aggressively being ignored and pushed to the side for an adult woman's ego. We live states away from family, and Julie lives down the street from family. It feels silly and frustrating. No one has even made comments on comparing the two kids. We feel the competition is in Julie's head, and we don't really know what to do anymore. Mother-in-law and father-in-law refuse to get involved, and I don't feel comfortable because as an in-law, there's fine lines. Do we need to continue to ignore her and what she's doing, or do we confront her? Is this bad enough to not invite to our son's party? Oh.
This feels like baby competition. Okay, and this is very standard, in my opinion. First of all, I'd create a separate group chat without Julie.
Well, but then how fucked up is that going to become?
Well, no, that becomes very like organized. Like, hey, we're moving over here so that Julie can have the other chat. We don't want to have this competition going on.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like no one intended to create a competition, and then Julie showed up to compete.
Right.
Like, I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really don't. Not that I've never seen it.
Right.
Like, I've seen it. It happens.
Right.
And it becomes a thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't think anyone knows how the hell it ever happened.
Well, I feel like a lot of times they don't. Like they
You know
don't
what I mean?
get
Like
it.
sometimes it makes sense when you're talking about like teenagers and like you have the one kid that's like straight A's, honor roll, doing all the things, and then you have the other, like grandkids, and like one is like doing drugs, and the other one got his girlfriend pregnant, and then
right,
is the girlfriend that got pregnant, not by the brother. That would be weird, but you get what I'm saying. Like there starts at the point in which these kids are becoming adults, that like some amount of competition occurs.
Right.
But like 10 months old?
Yeah. Well, you grew up with your nephew.
Yeah,
like
basically.
Basically. How much competition was there?
I didn't really feel like there was any. But at the same time, I know there kind of was.
Okay.
Between
the parents. Between the parents, because that's where this is at. This isn't between the nephew,
Yeah, the 10-month-old and the, I'm assuming, like, what,
8-month-old?
Yeah. Are not sitting there having a keyboard war.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they don't even know what the hell's going on.
Right.
So they're not really involved, other than they're the focus.
Right.
Of this, the shenanigans. And I think for one, see, here's my thing though. From the OP and her husband's side, this is just like, hey, cute baby photos for the family.
Right.
Like, he tried spaghetti tonight.
Right.
Thought y'all get a giggle.
Right.
Whereas it sounds like the other one is just like really saturating the group with information.
Right.
That it's like, I don't think anyone needs that.
Right.
Like, is that a thing? Like, tell me, maybe I'm too far out of the loop as a not parent,
Right.
but is that a thing now? We just go into a family group chat and post some poor, unfortunate child,
Right.
like their entire medical history
Mm-hmm.
and the results of like every lab work and everything. Like, and I'm not talking about a child that's critically ill and of great concern, but just like, well, baby is now 29 inches and, you know, weighs X pounds and, you know, really? That's just development. Like, that's cute and all.
Right.
But I don't need to know. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to sound cruel, but it's like, I don't care.
Right.
Like, that does not change my life in the least to know that this child is now 29 inches long.
Well,
like,
you should have been born at 29 inches long. But anyhow.
Anyway, but you get what I'm saying. Like,
I do. All right.
It sounds like that kind of visit where it's like, well, we took the baby's temperature and it's 98.4.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And like the child is now X inches long and weighs X pounds and, you know, healthy baby.
Right.
Oh no, he rolled over. Yeah. You know, whatever. Like, it just sounds like a bunch of that garbage.
True.
It's like, no one cares, sweetheart. Feed him some spaghetti when he's ready, and everyone will love the cute baby picture.
Yes.
And then move on. Like, it's cool.
Right. All right, so let's see if you've been judged the asshole for not allowing your cousin to attend the funeral. No, you are not the asshole.
Oh, there's a shocker.
Yeah, I know. I really threw a softball at you this time.
Yeah, a little bit on that one.
All right, guys. So I will be at the Terror Summit this weekend, meaning that there will not be a Mountain Bears. There will not be a Psychic That Plans. You guys will have to catch up and see what happens the following Sunday in Psychic That Plans. I'll be sure to show you my planner and all the fun stuff going on there. But there, you know, you can go ahead and get your ticket for $150. That is for 4 classes. Over the whole weekend at earthmagicwv.com.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't include a free reading. So if you need to book an in-person reading with Aeson, that is a separate fee. And make sure to book those. You have 15, 30, 45-minute, and 1-hour appointment slots available.
Exactly. All right. So with that, take it away, Vanna.
All right, so of course we want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Kathy, Mary Winfield, Brenda, Shannon C, Shannon D, Lady Gwendolyn, Charles Shaw, Tracy Van, Caitlin Bell, and Devin. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how you too can become a Patreon sponsor and receive all the wonderful benefits our baristas receive, please visit us at pcsbnetwork.com.
Yes. With that, y'all, good night.
Good night.
Thank you.